While we use social media to promote this podcast, I am probably going to talk a lot of shit about social media today. So, it's the easiest thing to do, especially nowadays. We say kids are on their phones more than ever. They're on Facebook. There's a lot more vanity circulating our value system. Social media this, social media is that. Hashtag this, hashtag that. We gotta like, subscribe, reblog, whatever it is. Social media is pretty much a world in which it has its own language. Over the years, I've really kind of changed my tune to social media, where I was a lot more negative about it. Now, I can see the positivity, but I'm not blaming social media for any of the problems that we have now. I blame us. This is Coffee and Catastrophe with Brent and Gabi.
I like that you're blaming the people and not the tool. As you kind of said, as you were starting talking, I was like, how are we going to talk about social media? Because we do benefit from it as a podcast, because we can like publicize what we're doing and like potentially get more listeners and stuff. Like it can be a positive tool. And like I've used it to connect with people that I don't know personally and like get inspiration from or whatever. So it can be a positive force. But like you said, we also know that like social media is in part the thing that keeps kids hooked to their phones at all times and kind of not engaging with the world around them.
I agree. I used to even be part of that club where I was like, the social media is doing this to me. It's not. I think what it's really doing is the social media is pretty much a mirror of our values. So we get out whatever we put in. So it's not like we were not vain, but like we were a vanity-free culture before MySpace came around, and then it became about having, your top 8 friends and followers on Facebook, or, like all that stuff. It just, over time, the technology became cooler than us. So it's a lot easier to be up to date with like what's going on in the world, but a lot of it is not reflective with what's going on in the real world in terms of like what's going on between us. So like right now, me and you communicate primarily through face-to-face interaction.
Yes.
We usually text, like typically like if there's something going on, I'll send you a text, you'll send me a text. But
yeah,
most of the time it's just to set up the next time that we hang out.
Yes.
And I'm totally like fine with that. Not only that, but we don't have social media interactions. Like I don't send you messages or posts on Facebook and, vice versa. Sometimes we send links, but other than that, it's just old school, traditional, face-to-face interactions.
Yeah, and I think that most of my friendships are through texting primarily, or like even for things like Snapchat, which I don't actively use it, but I do have like a group chat with my friends. Like they will like chat in there readily, or like we have a group message through like Facebook. And that's like really it. I use Instagram like as an individual to like post like things that are going on or stuff with the podcast, and to connect with people there. But that's really it. And I think like whenever I've like dated people, like we mostly just text, or like we will sometimes send each other links back and forth. We don't really use Snapchat or like, and I don't know if I'm just like disengaged because of my age, or is it like me personally that I don't really like value social media in the same way that other people do.
At your age, even my age, because we fall into the millennial category, we're supposed to be obsessed with social media. So it's not necessarily your age. Like you're supposed to be more like, this is like social media, Snapchat, pretty face. Look at me. I've got glitter and panda ears and, like this and share that. Here's a makeup tutorial. Here's me wiping my ass tutorial. Like whatever it is,
this
tutorial.
This is how I wipe my ass. Well, I think what you just illuminated there is like social media is a product of the me culture, all about me and my fantastic life and like everything that I'm doing that's wonderful and like how to make your life more wonderful and blah, blah, blah. And like, I think that on the one hand, we should be selfish in regards of like making ourselves feel good and living the lives that we want. But I also am like, it's so like me that like, how is that authentic? Like where, the best things in life come out of like collaboration and like creating things with people around you. So like, how does that help serve that?
It really doesn't at the end of the day. It really serves a very easy story to digest. Not only that, but you're putting out, so for instance, let's just say you wrote a long post just updating people about your life and just maybe like who you are. So for instance, you are a persona online. Because it's all related through text or sometimes with images and stuff, I'm still able to attach how I feel about you onto you. So for instance, it's kind of like there's this one show, I can't remember the name of it. It was just a bunch of people like in a diner shooting the shit. And they were talking about the stoic-faced hero. So like the stoic-faced action hero, like Arnold Schwarzenegger and Harrison Ford, whenever they were in action movies, they had stoic faces. So a lot of times in video games too, like Grand Theft Auto 3 and even Link with the Legend of Zelda series, they didn't really have emotive personalities or characteristics about them because you would, while watching, project your own, like, not only values, but you project your own avatar onto them. So when you're Gabi on social media and you're just talking about your life, we're missing out on all of the little nuances of, like, your being. Like, we're not seeing your thoughts like as they're happening. We're not seeing your communication. We're seeing, just a record in history of how you felt within this moment. But that moment's ever changing. So like when I first came over, you felt differently then as now when we're podcasting, because we're in like a different mode. Like now we're in like creative mode, and we were in more of like a friend catching up, how you doing, sharing coffee mode. We don't really see that transition through social media. We only see one of those. Not only that, but we see your essence, but we don't kind of see your nature online. When like we're talking face to face, we see each other's nature. So social media, I see your representation of yourself. So I see the substitute teacher of the teacher.
It's like you see, well, and it's true, like, it is true that you curate your image online. So, like, it's not that the things that you put out on social media are not aspects of you, but you highlight and delete specific parts of you online. So I totally get what you're saying, like, it's the essence of it. And also, like, you are right that, like, in every moment, we're, like, changing and becoming different and feeling different things or whatever. But and it's kind of like on social media, I think there's a pressure to only maintain that like high flying positive, my life is so awesome and great, look at all the cool things I'm doing or purchasing or trying on, or look how great my makeup looks, instead of like the bad shit. Well, and think about too, like, I'm sure you've come across people in your life who like put too much of themselves on social media. And it's like, if they use it to be passive aggressive or they use it to call somebody out, like there's there's also that aspect to it that it's like, well, I would much rather look at like a fake positive account than I would to look at the realness where somebody's like complaining about their husband or being too political on Facebook. Like I'm sick of seeing that. Like because especially too, like, I think that it's a good space to, like, start dialogue, but also, like, it is competing monologues a lot of the time, and, like, I really do think slacktivism is a thing, which is, like, just because you shared a video on Facebook, like, what are you doing? Like, how do you then take that information and change your life and your being to, like, fix the problem, instead of just, like, I shared a video to raise awareness, and that's all I did.
Yeah, it's pretty much a coffee filter, like a grandiose coffee filter, because how do you get like coffee in its liquid form and not have any of the powder in there, but you still want all the flavor of the original bean? What you're doing is, you're using this coffee filter to kind of catch all of the real shit. Yeah. And then what's really being sifted out is like the liquid, kind of like with the brew. So,
but there's people who don't use the coffee filter, and then it's just like gritty, muddy water, and it tastes like shit. And it's like, on the one hand, I want to like tell those people, like, keep your fucking personal life off of social media. But the other part of me is like, yo, like, this is a good place for that. Why wouldn't we use it as to be like really upfront about how shitty the life can be sometimes or whatever?
Perhaps if you're doing it in the service of art. Well, with this podcast, I've shared so many deep, dark, personal things about myself than I would with most people I interact with face to face. So I'm guilty of it. At least me personally. I used to put a lot of stuff on social media too when I was active. I was a lot more active, I would say, in the years of 2008 to about 2015. So my journey has been, I had MySpace originally. That was the first one I ever got.
Me too.
And then that was like 2005, right after I graduated high school.
Damn, you were on MySpace in 2005?
Uh-huh.
Wow.
And then I didn't get on Facebook until December 2008.
Okay.
And then I kind of migrated over to Twitter for a little bit, and I got a Tumblr in 2010. And I've had several blogs throughout the years through Tumblr. So I originally had a personal... I think I first made a personal blog, and then I melded that with a wrestling blog, and then I deleted all that stuff, came back, I had a film blog, and then I had, took that away, and then I had another wrestling blog where I would live. It's called live blogging. What you do is you watch an episode of Monday Night Raw live.
Yeah.
And then you blog live about your reactions to...
Yeah. Like when you live tweet something.
Exactly. Same concept. But, that was actually a lot of fun. I really missed doing that. But, it got to the point where it was 3 hours of just doing that and just guiding your reactions. And, I tried to be funny, and a lot of the stuff I said was just like a little, me off the cuff. And, but I had I had 200 followers on my wrestling and personal blog, and I would put my writings on there, and it was just a nice little creative space. And then over time, it just turned into more of like a routine. And then I got older, and then everybody else got younger. So it was really hard to relate to certain people, because a lot of the wrestling blogs I would follow, or I had to follow, they were like, oh, this is a cool wrestling blog. And then because they reblogged like a cool picture or something, and then I look on it, and it turns out it's a 14-year-old girl when her whole blog is Dean Ambrose fan fiction.
Oh my God.
I've read some shit. So I've read like this whole thing about John Cena and Dean Ambrose being secretly gay, and then
my God,
14 years old, and I'm like, this is the most fucking oddly intimate, well-written thing I've ever. It's just like the way like Dean Ambrose would cup his hand on John Cena's face, and
it's not like I have a thing against like gay people in relationships. I have a thing against fan fiction. Fan fiction is like a manifestation of social media, and it's just like, oh, it's so cringeworthy. And like, I don't want to tell somebody to like not pursue writing or like being creative, but also like John Cena and Dean Ambrose fan fiction. Are you fucking kidding me?
John Cena was the bottom.
I didn't need to know that. I did not. And like, here's the thing. Like, I know they've existed for forever. When I was in middle school and first in high school, when I liked like emo bands like My Chemical Romance and The Used, people would write fan fiction about the members of the band, and like they would call it like Ferrard, which was like Frank and Gerard of My Chem, and like I know that shit exists. I'm just like, this is it's not that the relationship is gross, it's that there's a child somewhere writing this shit and they think it's good.
You could tell the dialogue, like, I highly doubt Dean Ambrose would just be like, hey, what's up? And then John Cena would literally say, LOL, in person. Like, he was just like, LOL, Dean.
I just feel like I'm being, like, kicked in the teeth and punched in the gut as I hear that. Like, and I'm sure there was grammatical errors everywhere, and I don't even fucking care about grammar, so. It
was a really strange journey, like, throughout Tumblr. It's really with the wrestling one. One of my first followers was a Stone Cold Steve Austin fan, and I remember like when I first started my Tumblr blog, I would dedicate a day to posting only things about like one specific wrestler. I would write an article and then I would post pictures. So like my first day, I posted like 20 pictures and then an article of like Stone Cold Steve Austin quotes. I don't know, it was cool. And then she was around my age, and she was like, oh, this is a badass blog. And I think she was from Ireland and just a wrestling fan, so she was really nice. And then had a lot of kids following me, and then a couple of marks, just the smart guys, or not the smart guys, but the guys in wrestling, who know it all and hate Roman Reigns and John Cena, and, like the mark. And then I would also write about being straight edge, drug free. And then I had a small community following me from the straight edge community. And then I started getting into mental illness stuff. So I had like all different types of people following my blog. I never really interacted with too many of them. The Stone Cold girl, occasionally she would just be like, oh, that's awesome. I remember that when I was a kid. But other than that, it wasn't like I got to know anybody personally. Mm-hmm. There were some times where I would post something like, there's a feud at the time with CM Punk and The Undertaker. And then there was a segment where CM Punk, Paul Bearer, The Undertaker's manager, died in real life.
Yes.
So CM Punk beat up The Undertaker with the urn.
Yes.
And then CM Punk smeared the ashes of Paul Bearer on his body. It was the most despicable thing I've seen.
And also hysterical. Like, I'm sorry, that's hysterical.
But it was all through, like, it was the character, obviously. And then I wrote something like CM Punk smearing the ashes of Paul Bearer is different than Phil Brooks doing that to Paul Mooney. I think his name was, Paul Bearer's Mooney was, no, something Mooney.
Okay.
And then somebody was like, oh, why you gotta talk about their real life names like that? I'm like, fuck you. Like, that's they're playing characters, on TV. Like CM Punk's not, he's Phil Brooks.
Yeah.
He's not, like, he's got the persona and everything, and that's how he makes his money and living, but that's his persona. Same with John Cena. John Cena is not John Cena when he leaves WWE. He's a different dude.
Yeah. Is his real name John Cena?
His real name's John Cena.
Like, so here's the thing, too, like, with social media, like, there's a persona out there, and is that always you when you're away from the keyboard, AFK, or, like, away from your phone? Like, are you always that? The answer is no. I think it's really interesting, though, because, like, there's this weird interweaving marriage thing, and I'm thinking of some reason of, like, Stranger Things, this like weird marriage of like where something from the underground comes into reality. And like I think that it's so odd that like CM Punk, like if you see him in Chicago, people call him Punk or CM Punk or like whatever, and like no one calls him Phil Brooks. And like I think that's just so weird because in social media, like are there like people and presences that like leave the keyboard or whatever, and like everyone only sees them as the persona. They don't see him as Phil Brooks, and they don't know him as Phil Brooks. So I get that. But like, there's like Instagram models and fitness, like the fitness community on like Instagram or whatever. Like, those people, like that is their life and existence on social media. And they make so much money doing it. But it's like, where and when do you have the time to just be a human? Or like, when do you have time to be Phil Brooks versus when do you have time to be CM Punk? Or are they one and the same now?
I have a theory that social media is the digital version of professional wrestling.
In what regard?
So, in professional wrestling, they are all regular people playing characters. And each character, the best characters, are all enhanced versions of themselves. So, for instance, Bray Wyatt plays a cult leader who brainwashes people. He's not like that in real life at all. He's actually a really calm... He's just a regular dude. I would hang out with him. I've met Bray Wyatt. And he's like, hey, man, how you doing? Just a great...
He's just a dude.
But he's also into, like, literature, and he's into, like, the dark shit. So it's just a reflection, like, kind of his interests. Mm-hmm. So same thing with, like, Bailey and Sasha Banks. Like, Sasha Banks is, she's a cousin with Snoop Dogg, and she has a character where she's the quote-unquote legit boss.
Yes.
So, but... on Instagram, she's into dogs and like all these nice things. So,
and she's like just a regular person.
Yeah, and Bailey is like a wrestling super fan, and her persona comes off with that on TV with her character. With us, what we're doing is we're magnifying our online personas through our interests. Mm-hmm. So we all have a professional wrestling character.
True.
Not as like deep or as simple as that. So I'm not elevating pro wrestling when I'm saying that. I'm not demeaning people's like interests when I'm saying that either. What I am saying is that at least through professional wrestling storylines, they are simplified in such a way to where they're archetypal and they're easy to understand, and there's a storyline behind them. Mm-hmm. So right now, the number one heel, the wrestling bad guy, that's the term is heel, the number one heel in the world on social media right now is Donald Trump.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm trying to think if there's anyone worse than... In America right now, the biggest heel is Donald Trump. in globally, I'm not sure who is.
Through social media. You know what I'm saying? So, like, within, like, the media sphere, he's a wrestling heel. So, like, when they were talking about the women's march at the beginning of the year, he said, yeah, you're all here to see me. Boo. People in professional wrestling heels say that all the time. Like, all of you paid your money to see me, The Miz. Boo.
Yeah. Well, no, I think you're right. And funny fact that, you know, Donald Trump is in the WWE Hall of Fame and is friends with Vince McMahon and all that stuff. But, like, I feel like definitely through American social media, he's the biggest heel. And I don't know. I think that the reason that social media allows you to vent your feelings and we can easily amplify one aspect about a person that we don't like. And and especially Donald Trump. I mean, people's careers are being made by just the random shit he says off the cuff because he doesn't have the fucking tact to control himself. And, like, it's very easy to lump onto that, and he's so polarizing. He really is a heel. I mean, and I'm struggling to think of anyone beyond him that is, like, super unlikable and that people just, like, oppose online. He is the ultimate heel. And he has fans. He has fans.
Just like the bad guys in pro wrestling, it's very rare these days to have a uniformly booed heel. The only one I can think of right now is a wrestler in NXT named Tommaso Ciampa. So he's the current NXT champion, and he had a feud with his former tag team partner, Johnny Gargano. They were part of this tag team called DIY. So the story was, last year in Chicago, DIY lost the tag team match that night. And at the end of the night, Tommaso betrayed Johnny Gargano and just brutally beat the living shit out of him. And then Tommaso got injured, and he was out for 8 to 9 months. Tommaso came back and had a match at the beginning of this year with Johnny Gargano as kind of like the dueling brothers, like the kind of like the Cain and Abel, like the best friend betrayal. It's one of the best stories in professional wrestling. They had arguably the match of the year. And the fans in NXT, they usually cheer for most people, even if they're heels. Like, you'll hear cheers. But Tommaso came out. Everybody has entrance music. He came out to no entrance music. And people unanimously in that crowd were like, fuck you, Ciampa! Da, 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 da. Fuck you, Ciampa! Like, that polarizing. Even like the heels in WWE, they have their fans. So when you do something that's like more on the lines of like betrayal, I think people are more on board with recognizing that archetype.
Yeah. So
I would say, like, with Donald Trump right now, he does have his fans, but he's not like on that level of doing, because with Tommaso Ciampa, what made people hate him even more was that people loved him and he was seen as a good guy. Trump was never seen like that. His persona has always been a heel, but now he's like Triple H in the year 2000 heel, where, you know, he's just like this ultimate bad guy, but he has the power to be that ultimate bad guy. Whereas where Triple H before, he didn't line himself with, you know, the corporation with Vince McMahon and the McMahon-Helmsley era and became the champion. So all this long-winded stuff I'm saying about social media, we all have our characters and gimmicks online. So I had a gimmick where, all right, I was straight edge and I was a wrestling fan, and occasionally I would just say a lot of outlandish shit, and still kind of do, but I've calmed down a lot. So some people online have the passive-aggressive gimmick, where it's the whole world's fault and not them. Yeah. And then you have the people who have the gimmick of, here's my happy life, even though it's not really happy. So it's just through pictures. And then there's people who are marking their progress or trying to be funny. So everybody like has a gimmick. We're all playing through this archetype within social media. Yeah. We don't know that we're doing it. It's not like when I first signed up for a Facebook account, I was thinking, okay, I'm going to play this persona. Yeah. I'm going to play this archetype through social media. It just sort of happens because all of these like deep-seated stories are within us. Where social media kind of loses its edge, though, is originally the way we're supposed to use it. We're supposed to be pouring our values into social media. However, the way it is now, social media is pouring its values into us.
Well, and I think that I agree with that. And then my follow-up thought was that, but we created that monster. Like, we created social media and we've allowed it to be this thing. Like, we as a people have made it what it is. And we have the power to alter it and change it. The question is, will people want to change it and actively change it? And I think that it's too easy for people to be like, I don't know. It's too easy to like social media because you put your best parts of yourself out on it and it looks like it makes you look good for the most part. Like, you can control the image that people have of you to an extent by highlighting all the positive things in your life. And I'm trying to think about, in terms of personas, after I graduated college the first time, I had a fitness Instagram account when I was on this big weight loss kind of journey. And I guess I didn't really have a persona other than here was this girl trying to lose weight with another team. It was through Fit Girls Guide, which is they have these 4-week meal and exercise plans that you can buy. And really the thing that was really beneficial about it was it gave you a community every 4 weeks to rally around. And I had at one point, I think about 1,900 followers or something like that, because you would just more fit girls would join and then you would follow each other. And I don't think I necessarily had a persona. But the one thing I do remember about it was that once my life started picking up, the social media presence dropped down because I just didn't have time to maintain it. And I started losing followers and all that stuff. And then it kind of now I was just well, this is kind of meaningless, and I deleted it. I don't know how long ago, but and I didn't put my real name out on it because I didn't want my family to find it and tell them about it, or anyone from maybe work or school to find it. I didn't want it like that. So it's kind of cool that it allows you to kind of be whoever you want and do whatever you want there. But at the same time, is it healthy? Is it healthy to splinter off parts of you and highlight them on social media? We also need to talk about the really positive stuff. Have you met or made connections with people that you've never met physically, but you feel connected to or benefit just by seeing their presence or their content?
Oh, of course. There was actually even going through the mental illness stuff. I remember I would interact with certain people. I really got involved with the Cutter community on Tumblr. So,
Cutter is in self-mutilation?
Yes. So there's I will say overall, Tumblr is a very, very dark place that goes beyond just the suicide and the self-harm and the fitspo and the thinspo.
Thinspo, pro-Anna.
So there's a lot of, some of the most traumatizing things I have ever seen have been through Tumblr.
Yeah.
So they all have a community because at least Tumblr is a place where you are united through your interests. So let's just say that you do a certain type of manga, and then you like pro wrestling, and then you like this kind of music. You have a blog with all three. You can kind of connect through your interests on there. However, what happens at the end of the day is the stuff gets trivialized to the point to where we're starting to see these things as representations. So imagine, I'll tell you what, keep talking. I'm just going to pull out a pen and paper right now. But
okay.
Yeah, so just keep talking.
You're right that Tumblr can be a very dark place because it's also like you said, any place that this is a space for communities of all kinds and bad communities and people can really, okay, I'm going to sound so sheltered here. I didn't know free porn existed until Tumblr. Not that I was paying for porn, because I never looked at porn and don't look at it now. But that being said, there is a huge syndicate where you can find free porn all over Tumblr. There's aspects of it. I'm sure there's dark web shit. Even so, my Tumblr was kind of a mix of music, vintage photos, some kind of pinup stuff, and cool quotes that I found or whatever. But there would be I would follow some vegan people or vegetarian blogs, and they would fucking share photos of animals being slaughtered, and that even happens on Facebook now. And I'm I don't want to fucking see that content. But anyway, oh my god, once I saw a camel get killed, and that was terrifying.
That's
They slit its throat, and this is really graphic, I'm sorry. If you don't want to listen to this, like, take your earbuds off, mute this for a moment. Okay. They slit the camel's throat, and it was like chained, I don't know how, but it was like started flailing and screaming because it has fucking throat slit. It was horrible. You're laughing because you're uncomfortable. Or you're laughing because it's funny.
I'm laughing at the audacity
that someone would share a video of a fucking animal being killed. Yeah. I know.
Well, first of all, who the fuck eats camels to where you gotta say, okay,
there's parts of the world that eat camel,
right? Yeah. But like, okay, I got you. But yeah. So I mean, there was at one point in time there was Animal Crush videos.
Oh, I know what those are.
I've never seen one. I've seen images, and
I haven't seen images. I don't want to.
Yeah, but it's like a huge thing where people are just like, "Hey, I didn't know I was into this."
That's disgusting. That's absolutely disgusting. Like I'm so. I feel like I can say it's gross and disgusting because like someone might be like, "But that's just my kink," and I'm like, "Well, I can tell you your kink is fucking gross because it's causing harm to innocent beings."
Yeah. So, in the whole like shaming, like vocabulary, community culture, there's some things that you should be ashamed of yourself for. So, for instance, if you want to fuck children,
yes,
and you seek out child pornography, I'm going to shame the fuck out of you.
Oh yeah, well deserved.
If you jerk off to camels getting their throats slit, I'm going to say that's a little fucked up, dude. And that's one thing that unfortunately is kind of like a symptom of like, there's this idea at times that people are like, well, you can't tell me that this is wrong because it's my opinion or it's my feeling or it's about me. And it's like, well, if we did that, we would erase morality and ethics. So like ethically, it is never appropriate to have sex with someone who can't consent to it, including children. So that's where the ethics come in, you know, because otherwise if we didn't have the ethics, they'd be like, well, that's just how I feel. Well, fuck you. We have to go to morality and ethics. Oh, I'm going to share this video of animals being slaughtered or animals being crushed. Oh, that's just my kink. Well, fuck you. You're where the ethics come in. That's ethically wrong. It's immoral. So to anybody right now that feels offended because we've talked shit about sitting on an owl until it dies.
Oh my God. That's horrible.
That's,
I'm just so grossed out. We need to change I'm sorry. I've never done this before, but we need to change the subject on animal crushing because I'm going to puke.
All right. I'm not going to talk about it anymore. But let's go back to the picture.
Yes.
I'm sorry, unless you had a point. I'm sorry.
No, I did not have a point.
I mean, I know you have a point, but I didn't know if you had anything else you wanted to add to that.
Nah.
All right. So I drew a picture.
Okay.
Right now. So I want you to tell me what this picture is.
Okay.
If this picture is of.
Like I should describe it on the mic?
Yeah.
Okay. My gut reaction is that it's a house. What it is composed of is a big square with a triangle on top, like a equilateral triangle. There is a little chimney-like thing to the left, which is like a trapezoid figure. Then within the square that's like the body of the house, there are two littler squares with like a cross in the middle to compose windows. At the very base of the house, there's two squares with a dot towards the center of them, which makes it look like doors.
Okay, cool. Because so this isn't a trick. It's not like it's a close up of a pube or something, and then I just got to add the details, like one of those trick things.
Yeah.
No, this is a house. So how did you know it was a house?
Well, so I activated. So when I looked at it, my schema of what a house looks like was activated in my brain. And a schema is this psychological structure in your brain that holds all your information about one topic, and that fit that.
Okay, so can you live in this?
Can I live in the picture? No. Can I live in a house? Yes.
Right. But let's just say, like, if I built you a house like this.
Yes.
That looked exactly like this.
Yes.
Could you live in there?
Probably.
This size? These dimensions?
No, not those. Well, my hand could live in there.
Right. So, but you were able to just see that it was a house just based off of the very simple representation.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So that's what social media is.
Mm-hmm.
It's very simple representation of things. The world in and of itself, like, here, I'll just draw a little picture. You know, what would you, well, this actually kind of looks not like the fucking world, but how about this?
It's the planet Earth.
Yeah, very simple. It took me 4 seconds to draw. It
also looks like, did you ever watch Dragon Tales?
When I was a kid.
It looks like the magic scale they had.
Oh, shit. Okay. So, let's go with Earth for now. But within 4 seconds, I was able to just draw like a very general picture of what the Earth is. But the Earth is so fucking complex
and dynamic.
We can't even fully comprehend it. Same thing with this house.
So it like so you're saying that like social media like completely simplifies and takes like one facet, like the identifiable, like what is this? Oh, it's this. Like it takes that and puts it out there. And I think what you're probably going to get to is the fact that that's not reality though, because reality is never that simple. Exactly.
So it's not only happening with what we see. So if we see pictures of people smiling, we're just going to assume that they're happy and that their relationship is fine.
Yeah.
I don't know any happy relationship on social media. I've yet to see one where there are happy pictures, but you talk to them in real life and there's some shit going on.
Oh yeah, like with me and my ex, we had a lot of really nice photos together, but it wasn't happy all the time. It was never like, no relationship is. So, I mean, and here's the other flip side. How would you represent that you're unhappy in your relationship without it being like a thing where people are like, ew, keep that off social media? You know what I mean? Like there's an element to it that like on social media, we're all supposed to be like pristine and these wonderful lives and we're so happy and blah, blah, blah. And it would make it more real if people were open about, and I do know some people who are really open on social media, like who have like depression or specific like mental disorders or even eating disorders. And they're really upfront like, hey, I'm having like a really hard time right now. Or I'm really proud of myself because I did this, like happy, positive things. But there's still moments where they're really honest. Like, hey, my depression has been really beating me down lately. Can you guys like send me like happy photos of like dogs? And I think that's like taking something and making it positive. Although there's another part of me that's like, it's sad because I think that the one thing that always bothers me about social media is the fact that we use it for attention and the dopamine rush of the fact that people like us and like our content. Like that's why social media and your phone is addicting, is because it feels good and your body gets addicted to seeing how many followers you have, seeing how many people like you, all that stuff.
Yeah, it's the most popular, massively multiplayer online role-playing game of all time.
Yeah, you're not wrong.
Because there's rules to it. It's a game, and it always updates, and you're always, on whether you're contributing. You level up via getting more likes, more followers, more reblogs, and stuff like that. But you're also getting that addiction from that very quick satisfaction. So it really caters to our impulses.
No, for sure.
So whether we have something to say or whether we have a bored moment, we can just go online and see what's going on with the world. And what really sucks is it is so hyper present.
Yeah.
Immediately, but then it becomes it's the hyper present and the past. There is no future in social media. I'm not talking about like developing down the line, but there's no way to predict or go along with the future.
Yeah. Well, because it is so here and now, documenting things in the moment. I mean, and there are positives to social media. Like, I don't know why Facebook needs advertisements, but the fact that it has advertisements. And there's one about a woman after, what was the hurricane in Houston last year?
Harvey.
So after he crashed into Houston and devastated a lot of the area, on Facebook, if there's a disaster, you can check in as safe. And you can also, they put up like a crisis page and people were able to say like, to talk about rooms that they had in their homes or offer up shelter, which is rooms in a house, or food or materials or whatever. And they're able to do that and cause some good. So it's not that social media doesn't have positive impacts. And I mean, you mentioned earlier that a creator on YouTube who you really follow posted a very dark video saying that he was in a very dark place in his life. And like you said that virtually all the comments beneath it were positive and like uplifting things. So like I've seen those like positive online communities for sure. But then there's also like, it's like we kind of illuminated before, like it can also be a place for people I don't want to say bad people. Yeah, bad people. People who are into malicious things. It's also a place where they can congregate.
I agree with everything you said. My problem with at least social media is, in its pure definition, it's being advertised as a place where you can connect to as many people as you want and stay in touch and find like-minded people with like-minded interests, and you can get, like followers and all that stuff that way. It's not being used as a tool in terms of like a car. Mm-hmm. So a car makes our lives better because it gets us from point A to point B. So imagine if you were at the movie theater that's not a drive-in, and then all of a sudden you just park your fucking car in the movie theater. You'd be an asshole, right? Imagine if, like, you're going to bed and you're not living in your car. You just bring your car into your bedroom and you have the fucking engine running. Like, what the fuck? And no matter what, you just brought your car into play. Like, you're taking a shit and your car comes in there. You know what I'm saying? Or let's just say that you're out on a date with somebody and you're having a nice meal, and then all of a sudden your fucking car just like crashes into the table, and then you're still trying to like look them in the eye and pay attention. Like, or imagine if you're bored, you just say, fuck this, I'm going to my car. Like, no, it's that during all those interactions, it's become acceptable because it's the cell phone.
Yeah. Oh, and I agree. Like, how many times are you trying to connect with somebody and then they're like on their phone?
Here's the thing. I have never been to the Women's March, and I'm not criticizing it at all.
Okay.
But I will say this. I was talking with somebody who did go, and she said that on the CTA ride home, she was on the train sharing this experience and moment with all of these women who felt very empowered to use their voices. And they were all getting along and talking with each other at the march. And then on the CTA ride home, everybody was on their phones in complete silence, ignoring each other.
Oh, that's so... And, like, here's the thing. We're just socialized to do that. Like, it's normal and acceptable to, like, when you're on public transit, you're in that solo mode. You just get on your phone. Like, no more, no less. So it's just like, ugh. That's really sad. That's really sad. Well, and they were probably posting all their photos from, like, the Women's March. And, like, here's the thing. I think that it's a very positive thing to, like, be adamant or upfront that you were there and that you're supporting this. That being said, if you're just doing it for the photo and the cred when you post it, I think you have your priorities mixed up. And my fear is that happens a lot.
Yeah. I think when social events and important things are discussed within like the lexicon of our culture, it should not be a gigantic Pokemon Go event. Mm-hmm. The only reason a lot of people go to certain forest preserves and location is to catch the Pokemon, not to experience the location.
Yeah.
Not to necessarily have fun and say like, oh, this forest preserve is pretty badass. Or no, there's a fucking Cubone over there. Let's go get it. Well,
and like, have you seen that video floating around on social media? It's like, it looks like the style of cartoon that like Steamboat Willie, like the first Mickey Mouse cartoon where he's like driving a steamboat. It's like that kind of look, but it was made like really recently, and it's kind of like the dangers of social media, and it's like everyone looks like down, like black and white and sad, and then they're always on their phones and stuff, and like there's like one person who doesn't have their phone and they're like looking around, and like it's like through I think they're supposed to be a child or something like that, and like everyone's like walking around with their phones, but then like they're texting things that are like sunny and bright in color, like LOL, and like lovely photos of themselves, but really on the outside they're just like black and white, looking like really dull or whatever. And there's one part, like I think the finale of it is like there is a woman on top of a building and everyone has their phones up and are like, she's gonna jump and hurt herself and kill herself, and everyone's taking a video of it, and then all of a sudden you don't see her jump, but you see all the cameras come down, like they videotaped her jumping, and like then that one person who was like awoke to it all is like sobbing, and it's like, yeah, I think that really is the negative side of social media, is that like I can message somebody like, LOL, or that's so funny or whatever, but am I really laughing? Am I really connecting with them? Like, you know, I think it's hard too, because I've totally used social media like to feel good about myself, or like I feel like I look nice today, I'm going to post a picture of myself. Like I want that satisfaction, gratitude. I don't know what the word I'm looking for is. I want that feeling back, that reassurance that I look nice and that like people think of it that way. Like, even yesterday, I posted, I thought it'd be cool to post a video of me with my hair before I got it done and then after I got it done, like doing the same like motion on Boomerang or whatever. And I did that, and a couple guys like messaged me and were like, "Oh my God, you're so pretty." And I'm like, "Oh, thank you so much." And that felt like good. And I didn't like post that video with the intention of like people complimenting me, but that happens. Or so I don't know. It's like it is what it is. And you know, one thing I wanted to talk about today was that I saw on a self-care website, a few things that were listing was taking a break from social media. And I really don't post actively, although I look a lot on social media. Like I have downtime, I'll use Instagram or Facebook. I like watching like YouTube videos, like Yoga with Adriene is like a really positive force in like social media. And like, there's like vegan bloggers I'll follow, and that's really fun. But although there's like these positive figures, I am really thinking like maybe I should just like delete the apps for a couple weeks and just see what happens. See how my life is different. Just cause it probably would have, I feel like it would just generally have a positive impact.
It would. I remember I was completely off the grid for a while. I'm on Facebook again, not as an active member, but just for the podcast.
Yeah. So you can moderate. Yeah.
So for instance, I don't follow, I mean, I have friends, but I don't follow any of their posts. I only see what the podcast posts are. Mm-hmm. Everybody else, I don't know what the fuck's going on with their life unless I click onto their actual profile and like go through the news feed. Mm-hmm. Twitter I have just for the podcast as well. I remember at the beginning of the year I was not active on Twitter, but I followed a lot of people. Mm-hmm. And I remember I was a lot angrier because that's what I was seeing. You know, I was seeing a lot of like stuff with the political debates and, you know, how easy it is to separate people. And there's just a lot of rage and people dropping the mic within 160 characters. And Tumblr, I'm not going to go into all of the details about why I left Tumblr or my genuine opinions on the social media platform. All I'm saying is that Tumblr has a very dark secret that I really hope it becomes exposed and people are taking action about it. And it have to be its own episode on the podcast. I don't even know if I would talk about it here because it's so I think I've said too much already. But I deleted Tumblr when my newest Tumblr I had because I wanted to educate myself more on certain things. So for instance, I wanted to educate myself more with mental illness. I wanted to educate myself more with feminist perspectives and politics. So I followed blogs that I agreed and disagreed with just to see both sides of it. Tumblr told me that they deleted and unfollowed me from like a couple of blogs because it turns out they were like Russia propagandists. And I reviewed some of the blogs, and like the blogs that I followed, I was like, wow, like I didn't follow any like fuck Hillary blogs or anti-liberal democratic blogs. I followed, one of the blogs that got deleted was a black feminist blog.
Really?
Yeah. And I remember I saved some of the posts because, they had like nice links to them. So like, they post like, okay, here's a list of all the books that, we recommend. And, I still like to keep in touch with the reading and go to the library and read literature. So, I followed these blogs just for secondary resources. And then, one of the posts that I remember finding out was deleted was a video of a trans woman beating up an old lady at a rally. So, and I was thinking to myself, oh, okay, so Tumblr is telling me what I can and cannot see. It's like, oh, you can see this, but you can't see this. This is naughty. But then
there's still dark, seedy communities that are allowed to function through it.
Yeah, and they're deep, dark, they're dirty little secret that I hope they get exposed for. The way I saw it was you're able to have that content exist on here, but you're telling me that because there was some Russian propagandistic, community out there that what's better for me to look at. Mm-hmm. So I've deleted them since. And part of me has just become a little bit angry and anti-Tumblr since then, because Tumblr at this point is pretty much promoting a political agenda. And I understand like people like use it for other things, but so it doesn't have any room for as much of like supporter community for anything outside of the world of the left.
I think you're right. I think what I want to know your perspective on is how do you feel about Alex Jones and the InfoWars thing that he's been pretty much blocked on every... I know that he's not allowed on Twitter anymore. YouTube, I think, pulled all his stuff. Facebook pulled all his stuff. And he's basically like, they've blacked him out, essentially. How do you feel about that?
I'm not a fan of Alex Jones. I'm not saying I'm glad this happened to him. Just because I don't like him doesn't mean I think he should not have a platform. Mm-hmm. See, going back to the house picture, so not only is this a house that you can't live in, and this is happening with how we perceive social media, I believe this is how we're treating ideas as well. So, for instance, we have ideas. I can draw you a picture of an idea. Let's just say I can draw you a picture of an idea, which is just like a buzzword that actually perhaps has meaning and has depth and like 3D substance to it, like an actual physical, tangible house. But I draw this quick picture, and all of a sudden, that's what it is. So, for instance, words like oppression, patriarchy, misogyny, racism, Nazis, these are all terms that are very important, and then they have words to... and like they have like long and important histories that a lot of people just don't research or do the information on. They just know a very low resolution definition, and then they go along with that. What my problem is with social media now is that we're supposed to be getting our virtues from what corporations do. So, for instance, if a corporation rejects this idea or this person, we're supposed to follow suit and follow their, virtue signaling and their level of morality. So, for instance, going back to the whole Louis C.K. thing, I don't know if he's back on Netflix.
I don't think so. I think his return was just at a comedy club, I think.
Okay. So, in this case, when the Louis C.K. thing happened, Netflix and Hulu pulled all of his stuff. Now, I understand that these companies are still run by people who are, willing to, like, they have the right to exercise their freedom of who they want to associate themselves with. And, for the case of so I understand that. What I don't agree with is it's this collective of what corporations are doing that we should follow suit with.
Yes.
None of them are doing it out of... So when Netflix banned Louis C.K., they didn't do it because, Louis C.K. is this fucking awful, deplorable human being, and we are banning him because they banned him because they didn't want the backlash of keeping him on the platform. Because social media, if enough people rally together and say, fuck Netflix, they're losing money. So you might as well lose, you might as well lose people's respect than subscriptions. Yeah. A lot of these companies, and what I really don't like now is that the whole purpose of, free speech is to able to come to a consensus. I'm not saying that, I'm not being absolutionist saying that, okay, all speech should be free because, I shouldn't say, hey, Gabi, I'm going to cut your fucking throat. No. Or, hey, Gabi, you robbed the bank, you piece of shit.
Well, that's that's not covered under freedom of speech.
Right.
Yeah.
So you can't incite. I can't say, hey, Gabi, how about me and you go down to the grocery store and fucking raise hell and gather everybody else and do that.
Yeah, that's not covered.
But it's okay if you were to call me a Nazi.
Well, that is definitely what has happened. That's definitely a product of it. And I also don't support Alex Jones at all. But at the same time, I am weary. I'm cautious and wary about the fact that these companies, and again, they're private companies, so they can say, who they want to promote or whatever. And I mean, Alex Jones has said some very horrible things. I mean, he's the guy responsible for this idea that Sandy Hook was an inside job or whatever. He's said some really horrible things, that I do not agree with whatsoever. But at the same time, I'm like, well, if we start censoring him, or eliminating his platform, that doesn't get rid of him. In fact, maybe his supporters are even more strengthened in their beliefs that he's this, this figure that must be listened to who gets denied this attention. Maybe they rally around him even more now because of what's happened, and they make him like a martyr figure or something like that. So I don't know. I'm cautious to be like, oh yeah, let him back, because he said some just vitriolic things. But at the same time, like, we don't want to start censoring people and then like they just grow stronger.
Not only that, but who's determining what you can and can't say?
Yeah, exactly.
It's whoever has the power and whoever is, riding the wave of the times.
Yeah. Well, and that's always how it is. That's always how it is. The winners write history.
Yeah. I think the true betterment of society is not necessarily making the best better. It's making the worst better. Because let's just say, like, in terms of music, just going there for a second, we're not trying to beat the all-time greatest music, like with like Led Zeppelin, the Beatles, and Queen, and Janis Joplin, and Jimi Hendrix. Like, we're not trying to eclipse that.
Yeah.
I think because we already understand the art form, and music came to be that way one little push at a time. We got rock and roll because of all the music before that. We got Kesha now, and we got, like Lil Uzi Vert or whoever.
Lil Uzi Vert, Lil Pump, yeah.
We got those because these small little progressive steps towards, just like these little tiny deviations. I would say now we have the best worst ever in history in music. And I think that's a great thing. So for instance, if you take it, like if you give examples like the absolute worst music of this time and you compared it to the worst music in years past, I would say our worst music now is far fucking better than the worst music from when it was the best.
I don't know really honestly where I stand. I would really have to assess my feelings on that. But I really do agree with you on the premise of like, we should be focusing on making the bad things like better, and like, and maybe censorship is not that way. Maybe it's dialogue, maybe it's other things, it's accountability in other ways. But yeah, no, I think that that's probably where we should be headed with social media.
And what sucks with dialogue is that you do have to come from a place of maybe you're wrong.
Yeah, well, and no one wants to be wrong, but I think that that's part of being human, is you have to make mistakes. For real. Like that's part of being human. That's how you learn, that's how you grow. What social media is pouring into us right now, we're letting it do this, is we have these very simple like diagrams of what it means to be a moral and righteous person. And if you were to deviate anything else from that picture I drew of the house, then you're not part of that circle. So we're trying to live up to almost like this thing of perfection. And what really sucks about social media is it is a record of all of our impulses. Yes. Predominantly. Granted, yes. Yeah, I know people, like, if you were to actually, like, do, like, tallies and stuff, I would say at least 80-20. 20% you have, like, well thought out, articulated articles that have had time and effort put into them. 80% of it is just impulsive feelings in the moment. Yeah, no, I think you're right. And I feel that it just, like, people need to just be really conscious of all of it. Where are you coming from? Why are you posting this? How is this gonna affect me? Keep your shit fucking private if you get a job that you don't want to lose. There was an incident at work recently, in the past year or so, there's been things where like things have come out on social media posted by like, I don't want to say colleagues or like people even I work with, but just the horror stories of like teachers or figures in schools not keeping things private, and then they get busted for it or something like that, or like inappropriate content that like they shouldn't be posting or seeing. So I hope that we are working towards making the bad better. But I honestly don't know how long that's going to take. And also, too, like, even on our podcast, like, there's been times on here where we've said things and then been like, should we delete that? Or are we going to get in trouble? Or is somebody going to flame us because we said something? And, like, it is true, I think, that people are so obsessed with saying it correctly that they sometimes hold themselves back from even trying to say it because they don't want to get attacked.
I agree. Well, I would say mainly me with the shit that I've said on here.
No, I said something, remember? I said something and you were like, are you saying this? And I was like, ooh, no, I didn't mean that. No.
Yeah, that's true.
So, like, it's, and that happens, like, every day. Like, in the classroom, I'll say something, and then kids are like, what? And I was like, well, this is what I mean. And then they're like, oh, and, like, I'm not even talking about, like, I'm not even saying, like, polarizing things in the classroom. Just, like, that is what it is. Like, you have to, like, I think it's better to like go out there and like say what you're going to say and try to say it in the best way you can than to bite your tongue completely.
Yeah. I think I'm all for censorship so long as it's for one, okay, don't post a video of children fucking each other.
That's disgusting.
So, but I think where it's coming to now, or okay, don't post videos of owls being sit on until they die.
So innocent beings that cannot consent to what you're doing to them or doing to each other, don't post videos of that. Don't do that, period. And if you do, make it very easy for the police to find you.
Yes. So my problem is everything now is politically polarized to the point to where you can't escape it. There's no dialogue. There's no idea. There's very few just like platforms anymore to where there's like, you just can't get away with fucking like okay, just being absent of politics or political ideology. Mm-hmm. Like imagine if everything in your life right now either had to be Bears or Packers.
Yeah.
You had to, okay, you wanted to buy a guitar? Bears logo on it. You wanted to buy a toothbrush? Had to have a Packers logo on it. You wanted to take a shit? Got to use Packers toilet paper.
Yep.
Everything's bare. So just like even dialogue with like social services, like they're like right now, the wave of the times is instead of a fashion. So where like if we was like dress up like the 80s day. So, you know, you can just wear like, you know, these like windbreaker, you know, pants and like, you know, like these breakdance, you know, you can wear the look of the 80s. The look of the modern times now is not necessarily like what we wear. It's what we're consuming ourselves with and in our language as well.
Yep.
It's the words we say. It's the ideas that we're expressing to each other. So 20 years from now, we're going to be like, okay, talk like you're in the year 2012 to 2018. I'm triggered. You know, I'm triggered. That's the patriarchy. That's a misogynist, racist, imperialist, capitalist. Xenophobic. Like, you know, it's with like our like dress is the language. And not only that, it's our cell phones too, because the first iPhone to what iPhone is now is such a massive growth that we still don't really understand it. Not only that, but we don't have a generation of parents now who were children with social media, raising a new next generation now.
We're getting into that now for sure.
Yeah.
Now we're entering it. So this is all... You know, life is already kind of a huge experiment in a petri dish, and this is like a huge part of it.
Yeah. So social media is just as real and, you know, as professional wrestling. There are injuries. People do get hurt, but I think there's some sort of predetermination there because you know what you're putting out there. You don't know exactly what's going to happen. Maybe you have a post like on one of your Instagram photos. You're like, all right, I'll just post this. Boom, it fucking goes everywhere. That happened to me in Columbia. So when I was in college, my hometown's Round Lake, Illinois. So I was just at work one day at college, and I was bored. So I created a photo of Round Lake, but it was through the art style of a Grand Theft Auto video game. So it's very peculiar. So imagine 9 square panels, like 3 in the top, 3 in the middle, 3 in the bottom. And then in the center is like, you know, like this white glorified font that says Grand Theft Auto. That's the Grand Theft Auto poster. But I did it with Round Lake Beach. So for instance, like
I've totally seen that picture before.
I made that picture.
That's hysterical.
Yeah. It fucking blew up everywhere.
Yes.
Like,
it did.
But I noticed what happened was I posted it on my Facebook profile originally. And then I remember I actually had my own watermark on it. If you look at that photo closely on the very bottom right, you'll notice that it says Brent Boy in little stylized letters with a sword going through it. And like where the hand guard is a green fist. That was my little cute logo at the time. So what people were doing was cropping out my fucking watermark.
Of course.
Posting it on their profile. And if you even go on Tumblr now and you just type in Round Lake Beach, you get that stuff there. And then even like the Chicago memes, it got over there too. But nobody knew that I did it. So people like were just able to take like my creation. I got maybe 20, 30 likes total. And then I remember one of my friends posted it and reblogged it. That got like hundreds of likes on their profile. Yeah,
for sure.
I did that too when Obama won the second time around. So what I did was, he had this little, he had this photo where he was just waving at the crowd and then like all the balloons and shit were coming down behind him. So what I did is I actually photoshopped the tag team championship belt in his hand. So it looked like he was holding up the belt. That took off everywhere too on Tumblr. So, and then of course they blocked out my, little Brent Boy logo, and I never got any of the credit. So that's happening with the words now. So originally you start off with the intent of a word or an idea, and then a lot of people, take it over, especially like with the youth now, because young people want to change the world. Fuck, I wanted to change the world so much, like when I was young. I still do now, but I want to make it more local and more feasible, because I can't attack institutions with the current buzzwords that are being used as the ammunition now.
Yeah.
Because those have no meaning. So I'm trying to be more partial and like hear both sides of a story. And, just working at the warehouse has really opened up my mind to the world, because I work with black conservatives who voted for Trump. How do I talk to them? Because it's easy to the white Trump supporter is supposed to be racist. Well, what if one's black? At school, I work with black police officers. What do I do there? You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Same thing. I work with like Hispanic and Mexican Trump supporters. I work with very like liberal white people. You know what I'm saying? Like there's so.
And we are always learning how to navigate those different situations. We're not living in stereotype. We're not living in generalization anymore. We're engaging people as people, and that gets lost on social media.
I remember I was working at the warehouse one day, and there was a rainstorm, and this was like right as night was breaking, and I was with my coworker Tom. Tom is a 60-plus-year-old Trump supporter. Tom is one of the coolest guys I've ever met and talked to and even worked with.
Mm-hmm.
So somebody else took this picture. Me and Tom were looking out, and there was a rainbow, and then Tom's just kind of pointing at it. So think of it this way. Metaphorically, me and a Trump supporter took the time out to look at a rainbow in the darkness. That's what the fuck it really is all about.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful.
But that's how we really are as people. So it's not good and evil, like good are liberals, evil is, Republicans. But what's happening is we have all these low resolution photos of what these people look like. Yep. And not only that, but when it comes to censorship, a lot of people say, like, to counter-argue censorship, well, what about Nazis and genocide? No, we're not saying that. We're just talking about even like little disagreements of opinion. People are losing their livelihoods over them. I'm not saying we have to like them, but I'm saying we shouldn't be getting our cues from big companies and corporations in terms of how we should treat people, especially when a lot of those like viewpoints are polarized to only one side of the political spectrum.
Yep.
So the whole thing with politics within social media. So if social media is a representation of all of us participating in the little fishbowl of professional wrestling, I would say then with political ideologies, it's the very same, such as Raw and SmackDown. It's the brand split. They're very similar, but, they're using two different sides to, quote unquote, become champion. So we all have our social media personas. Some of them, we're all trying to be that face, the ultimate good guy in WWE.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people are just purebred heels. So, for instance, Donald Trump, he's a great heel in professional wrestling. Then we got the passive-aggressive dickheads who just, write a message that's supposed to be like, sometimes people are doing this when it should be that. Well, you made that to seem morally superior. Not only that, to your audience. So, I don't know. It really is a reflection of who we are. So can we change it? Yes. I would say, get the fuck away from it for a little while. Step away, because what you're doing is you're kind of like reorienting yourself with, like your kind of overall goals with social media.
Yeah.
At the end of the day,
and with reality.
With reality too, because you'll start to see that like, wait a minute. Okay. So you have all these quote unquote Nazis walking around. How come I'm not fucking running into any of them? And how come when I'm supposed, like I even talked with Tom, I said, Tom, like, we talked openly and honestly about politics. And what I've really learned is that it's not the ideas that people have. It's the journey to those ideas, of how people are getting to these ideas is what's important. It's not just the idea in and of itself. And I talk with Tom, I'm like, Tom, I'm supposed to punch you in the fucking face right now because you're supposed to be a racist, piece of shit, ignorant, like, white supremacist Nazi. And then, I've learned so much just like from talking to him because he's just a regular fucking guy. And truth be told, all the people that have really hurt me in my life have been liberal. And it's not been because of that. It's because people's personalities are latching onto ideas, and that's what's really dangerous. So you're having like a cool person is because they are liberal. You're having a cool person because they're Christian. You have a cool person because they're... No. Cool people are independent of ideas. Yeah. Because personality is behavior, and thought is, and belief is like nested more in thought. So with that being said, I'm going to be I have a fucking Instagram where I post like food, like all the little dishes I'm making. So what I'm really saying at the end of the day is look what I can do, and I hope I get a shitload of followers from it. So is that wrong? Yeah. No. Maybe. I have no idea.
That's where we're all sitting. We're all sitting at that space with you. I think everyone listening in is like, is it good? Is it bad? Is it something in the middle? We're all sitting there with you.
Yeah. I would say just keep a lookout. If anything is being politicized, watch the fuck out.
Yeah, I think that just having that critical lens is always important. It's always vital.
Yeah, but it's essentially just it's a glorified and entertaining message board that's mixed with a massively multiplayer online role-playing game like World of Warcraft.
We're all just a bunch of people playing WoW, guys.
Yes. So what are you going to do after this podcast? Like in regards to social media, are you still going to be like, you know what I'm saying? Like what's like the solution?
I think what I'm gonna, I don't really have a problem with my current social media presence. I really don't post that often. I mostly use it to promote cool projects that I'm doing, or like pictures of me like feeling and looking good, which I really don't have a problem with. I think I might just take a break from it and like turn off notifications for a couple weeks and just, again, like kind of recalibrate with reality a bit. I mean, I don't overuse it by any means, although I do look at it when I'm bored. So, but at the same time, like, I feel like really, like, for example, I left my phone in somebody's car last year around this time, and I didn't have it for 8 hours. I had to message him on Facebook because, to be like, hey, can you like bring over my phone or whatever when you have time? And I didn't have it for about 8 or 9 hours, and it was one of the most productive days I've ever had. So I think it'd be cool to just kind of be in my head and disengage from it, and to go from there, and to remember that there's so much more to life than this one aspect of it that is called social media.
Yeah, and your thoughts have to catch up with your life too.
Yeah.
Like I think when you rely more on social media for not only like information, but for interaction, but for contribution and, validation, what you're really doing is you're taking one step or two steps forward and then one step back with your life. So your thoughts are always way ahead of your life. So if you actually like stopped and let your thoughts catch up to your life, it's so much more freeing. And that's how you get a clearer mind. Because if you're just a smorgasbord of all of these thoughts, like there's no implementation with them.
Yep. 100%.
So fuck, man. I do miss the good old days with Facebook though, but I don't think I could ever be as active as I used to be, at least in my real life. Perhaps if I were to develop a dumb online persona, I can make it work, but in terms of just like what I used to be, I can't do it anymore.
Well, and that's, we all grow and change, and so does that sphere, and so does the world, so I think that's okay.
It is. So what also is okay is if you guys followed us on Facebook
and like us on Twitter at CCWPG, and on Facebook at Coffee and Catastrophe, and we're online on our website coffeeandcatastrophe.com, and you can listen to us and subscribe to us on iTunes and Stitcher and Castbox, and there's going to be special content coming to YouTube soon.
So yeah, so we just took a diarrhea, on some social media, but
we're really whores to it, is what we're saying.
Yeah, we just need. Well, here's the thing: we're the whores that need to be cuddled afterwards.
Yes.
So
yes.
So yeah, but in any case, guys, just make sure that your values are coming from you and nobody else, and not being launched from a platform such as on social media. And in the meantime, just take care of yourselves and be good to each other.
Bye, guys.